Okay, number 1, the directions say divide, also called find the quotient. When you're given a polynomial and they divide it by a binomial, how do we divide those? Well, you got to know tomorrow.
You put them over the that's the way you do it. You divide everything by.
I taught y'all a special method.
You put the box.
Right, synthetic division. You have a little box. Inside that box, what do you put? A negative 3. Since you're dividing by b plus 3, you put a negative 3 in the box. Then what numbers come down? 9, 35. Correct. Then you're going to leave a little space and draw a line. What's the first step of synthetic division? Drop the first number, which is a 9. Then you multiply by the box number, so what do you get? Negative 27. Now you just do what it says. What is 35 minus 27? 8. And then you do 8 times negative 3 and you get negative 24. What's 24 minus 24? 0. And that's your remainder. Okay, so since I see that I have a remainder of 0, that eliminates A and C. Now, since it started out b squared, you start your answer b to the first, and then plus 8, which is d. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute head start to try number 2 before I go over it. Process. Anytime you're asked to divide, and you're dividing by a binomial, you can use synthetic division. Since it's n minus 3, you put a positive 3 in the box. Then you bring down the numbers, 3, negative 7, and negative 6. You leave some space and draw a line. The first number always just drops down below the line. Whatever drops below the line must be multiplied by the box number. So 3 times 3 is a positive 9. Negative 7 plus 9 is 2. 2 times 3 is positive 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is a remainder of 0. So, not 0, 0. Just by knowing that the remainder is 0, you can eliminate all of the other options. And then you see that since it's n squared, you start with n to the first, plus 2, which is a. Now, I don't know if there will be any, but keep in mind, what if you solve something like this? 3n cubed plus 2n squared plus 7. When you listed your numbers right here, what numbers would you list? 3, right, 2, 0, 7. The reason you have to list a 0 is because the n to the first term is missing. They skipped it. I don't know that that'll happen on this test, but just be aware that if they skip a term, like this one skipped into the first, you have to put a 0 for it. Alright, number 3. They ask you to find g plus f of x. So they want you to start with the g function, which is x squared plus 3. And they want you to add that to the f function, which is 4x minus 5. Since it's an addition of polynomials, we don't have to worry about signs. We can just start combining like terms. So x squared comes down because it is the only x squared term. It can't combine with anything else. The 3 can add to the negative 5, which will make a negative 2. And then 4x is the only x to the first term, so it just comes down in the middle, and it's plus 4x. So we're looking for x squared plus 4x minus 2, which is b. Alright, number 4, they want you to start with the f function, which is a squared, and they want you to subtract the g function. Now keep in mind, you're subtracting the entire g function, and it's 2 different terms. So you must put it in parentheses. And the reason we have to do that is so that we know the negative belongs to both of those. Okay, so now we have a squared minus 3a minus 2. There is a typo in the choices. This one should have said minus, making D the right answer. Okay, number 5. I'm going to let y'all take a second and try number 5 by yourself, but I need to correct some typos. Right here in A and B, these should both be squared. A squared, A squared. So go ahead and change both of those cubes to squares, and now try number 5 by yourself. They want you to start with the g function, which is a squared plus 2, and subtract the h function from that, which is 4a minus 1. Since it is subtraction, you have to distribute that negative to everything that comes after it, which won't affect the first thing. It won't affect that binomial, but it'll make that 4a a minus 4a, and it'll make that negative 1 a plus 1. Now we start combining like terms, starting with a squared. There's no other a squared term, so it just comes down, letting you know your answer is going to start with a squared, which eliminates c. Then you move on to your a to the first term. There's only one of them, so you just bring down that negative 4a, and then 2 plus 1 is 3, which lets you know a is the answer. Okay, number 6. What are they wanting us to do with those two functions? Multiply them. They want you to start with the g function, which is 2n minus 5, and they want you to multiply it by the h function, which is 2n. So how do you multiply stuff like that? Distribute. So 2n times 2n is 4n squared, so that eliminates a and b. 2n times negative 5 is minus 10n, so c. Okay, go ahead and try 7. Okay, let's look at it. They want you to start with the g function, which is 4t squared, and multiply it by the h function, which is 2t minus 2. So again, we're going to have to distribute. 4t squared times 2t to the first is, right, because remember, when multiplying variables that are the same, you add up their exponents. That's a 1 and that's a 2. That's where we got the 3. And then 4t squared times negative 2 is negative 8t squared, so that leaves D as the choice. Under which operations are polynomials considered to be closed? Adding, subtracting, and multiplying. Think about it. We've done a lot of these. We've added them, and when we added two polynomials, we got back a polynomial. When we subtracted two polynomials, we got back a polynomial. And when we multiplied polynomials, we got a polynomial. But when you divide, sometimes you will get a polynomial. Like, look up here. When we divided both of these, we got back polynomials. It won't always happen, though. Sometimes you're left with dividing by a variable, and that is not a polynomial. So division is not closed. Only addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Okay, let's move to the next page. Number 9, the directions say find the inverse of each function. So when you read that question, what are you going to do first? Well, before we even do that, don't we need to make this a y? Okay, so now we change the x and the y. What will it look like once that's done? Right. And then what's step 2? What? Solve for y. So what do we do first? Add 4/9 to both sides. So now I have x plus 4/9 on the left side of the equation and 1/9 times y on the right. Now what do you do to isolate the y? Right. Normally when you have a number being multiplied by the variable, you divide by it on both sides. But we all know that with a fraction, that's going to get really ugly, dividing all that by another fraction. So our other option, which is a little bit prettier, is to multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction, which is 9/1. And couldn't we just call that a 9? Okay, now on this side, they cancel each other out because any number multiplied by its reciprocal is 1. And there's no need to write that 1 beside the y. It's understood. But then look, when you go over here to multiply this side by 9, everything that was already over there gets multiplied by the 9. Not just the x, everything. Do you see an answer that looks just like that? No. It doesn't look just like that. What did they do to get to the answer? They distributed. Yes, simplified by distributing. 9 times x is 9x, and then 9 times 4/9 is 4. Because think about it like this. Look up at the board a second. If this 9 is over 1, 9 times 4 is 36. 1 times 9 is 9. Isn't 36 over 9 4? So it's C. Okay, I want you to take a second and try number 10 before I go over. 10, what would you do first? Switch the x and y, and that's the y. So it'll become x equals negative 4y minus 3. Then what would you do? Add the 3 because we're trying to solve for y. So x plus 3 equals negative 4y. And now to solve for y, what do we do on both sides? Divide by negative 4. So we have y equals that. But I don't see something that looks exactly like that, but something similar. The way they got C is they just chose to take that negative and put it in the top on both of them and leave 4 positive. Just think about it. Isn't x over negative 4 really the same thing as negative x over 4? And isn't 3 over negative 4 the same thing as negative 3 over positive 4? As long as one of them's negative, it doesn't matter where it is. So they just chose to take the negative and move it to both the numerators, which is fine. Okay, number 11. Find each term described. So, fourth term in the expansion of 3a minus 1 to the fifth. So what do I do? 1, 5, 10, 10. Okay, but look. Can I stop there because all they care about is the fourth term, and that's going to be the fourth term? Okay? Does that make sense why I can stop there? Because all they care about is the fourth term? Okay, so now what do I do on each one of them? I start with the first term, which is 3a, and since it's a number, put it in parentheses. Otherwise, if you didn't use parentheses, wouldn't that look like 13a? So that's why those parentheses are important. Okay, and then what else do I put on each term? A negative one, and it also goes in parentheses. And it's very important that it's in parentheses because of the fact that it's negative. Okay, now what do I do? Well, not yet. I got to do my exponents. 3a starts out to the fifth power. Since it was first, it gets to start out to the fifth power and then it descends. And then the negative 1 will do the opposite. 0, 1, 2, 3. And why is it they have to do that? Because within each term, the exponents will add up to your exponent from the question. Like 5 plus 0 is 5, 4 plus 1 is 5, 3 plus 2 is 5, and so on. But remember, we only care about the fourth term. So now that we know every part of the fourth term, we can simplify it. We don't really need to worry about these anymore. So, I have a 10 times 3a squared, which becomes what? 9a squared. Isn't 3 squared 9 and a squared is a squared? So don't forget that 3 needs to get squared and the a needs to get squared. And then what's negative 1 cubed? Negative 1. Anytime you have a negative number raised to an odd exponent, it's going to stay negative. If it's raised to an even number exponent like 2, 4, 6, 8, it'll go positive. Now what does all that become when you multiply it up? Negative 90a squared, so that would be C. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to try 12 by yourself. Okay, number 12. This time they want to know what is the coefficient of the x cubed term in the expansion of 2x minus 1 to the fifth. So since it's to the fifth power, again, we're going to be using 1, 5, 10, 10, 5, 1. And then 2x is the first term, so we list it first on each of those coefficients. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the exponent so I'll see where the x cubed one ends up. It starts out to the fifth power, and then it goes down to the fourth, and then to the third. So now that I see where that x cubed is, I don't need to bother with doing those. Okay, now I need to go back and put the second term of the binomial, the negative 1 on all of them. And then its exponents do the opposite. It starts out to the 0, please pay attention, and goes up. So the term we care about looks like that. Now we just need to simplify it. 10 times, what is 2x cubed? 8x cubed. And then what is negative 1 squared? 1. And what does that become when you multiply it? 80x cubed, but they only care about the coefficient, so they just care about the 80 part. Okay, go ahead and try 13. 13. What is the coefficient of x squared in the expansion of 2x plus 1 to the fourth? Okay, so the numbers for the fourth power are 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. First, 2x goes on all of them. Okay, and if you do them as you go, like since 2x was first, doesn't it start out to the fourth power? And then the third power, and then this one will be the one to the second power? So then you'll see that there's no need to even finish with those, because you've now found the term that you want to focus on. But you got to finish. You now have to go back and put the positive 1 on all of them. And its exponents do the opposite, start out to the 0 and move up. Okay, so now we can simplify the term that they told us to focus on. It becomes 6 times 4x squared times, which becomes, right, so the coefficient of that term is 24. Okay, I feel like the Pascal's triangle one should be pretty easy for y'all tomorrow. Just remind me at the end to go over creating the triangle one last time. Yeah. Okay, number 14. The lengths of the legs of a right triangle are represented by 2x plus 3 and 4x plus 8. The perimeter of the triangle is represented by 2x squared plus 6x plus 22. What is the length of the hypotenuse? Okay, well with this right triangle, which side is the hypotenuse? Kiara. Which side is the hypotenuse?
The big side.
The longest. Isn't this the right angle and the hypotenuse is always the one across? So this is the unknown side. We don't know that. We're trying to find the length of it. But we know the legs are 2x plus 3 and 4x plus 8. Does it matter where I put 2x plus 3? No. You could have put 2x plus 3 right here and 4x plus 8 right there. It's not going to matter. They do tell us that the perimeter of this triangle is 2x squared plus 6x plus 22. How do you find perimeter of a triangle? Well, but how do you find the perimeter of any triangle in any situation? Add up all the sides. So we need to add up this side plus this side plus this side. Right. What is this side added up with that side going to be? 6x plus 11. And now we add that to the hypotenuse and it gives us this. So yes, you could just take this and subtract it from that, or you could just kind of look at it. To get 2x squared, when there was no 2x squared, don't you kind of have to add 2x squared? And then 6x remains 6x, so we don't need to add anything to that. And then to get from an 11 to a 22, what else has to be added? 11. So that is the length of the hypotenuse, 2x squared plus 11. And now if you added up all three of those, it would produce that trinomial. Okay, now try number 15. See if you can do one like that by yourself. Okay, the lengths of the legs of a right triangle are represented by 3x minus 3. Now keep in mind that could have been written on this one. And 6x minus 8. The perimeter is x squared plus 9x minus 10. And perimeter of a right triangle is found by just adding up the sides. So this side plus this side plus this side. Well, obviously this side is unknown, but we can add it to these two, which are 9x minus 11. So to get this, what do you have to add to 9x minus 11? Definitely an x squared and a positive 1. Because 9x remained 9x. You didn't have to add anything to change that. But to get from a negative 11 to a negative 10, you must add 1. So the side of the hypotenuse is x squared plus 1. Okay, last question. Okay, number 16. Above is a 1-inch frame around a pitcher where the length is 3 inches longer than the width. See, they showed that. They showed that the pitcher, which is the white space, is 3 more than the width. See, the width is represented with an X, And the length is represented with an x plus 3, because the length is 3 inches longer. The area of the whole frame, so the black space, is given by the expression x plus 5 times x plus 2 minus x plus 3 times x. Because think about it, if you're just wanting to find the area of just the frame, just the black space, don't you need to do its length times its width, but subtract out the picture? So using the choices given, fill in the blanks under the given expression. What is the length of the picture alone? Look, here's just the picture. The picture is just the white part, and its length is x plus 3, which is b. What is the length of the frame? Well, think about it. If this is x plus 3, doesn't the frame have to be longer than that? X plus 5, so B. A. Okay? And then the area of just the picture, okay, just the white space, how would you calculate the area of it? Correct. X plus 3 times x, which is D. And the area of the picture and the frame together, so the whole area of this whole rectangle. Right. Okay? Now let's quickly go over how to create the triangle. Okay, you'll start by just putting 1 straight down the diagonals on both sides. Then, like right here is your first empty space. To get this space, you just look above it. 1 and 1 make 2. And then you have 2 spaces here. So 1 and 2 is 3, 2 and 1 is 3, 1 and 3 is 4, 3 and 3 is 6, 3 and 1 is 4, 1 and 4 is 5, 4 and 6 is 10, 6 and 4 is 10, 4 and 1 is 5. Each row will increase by 1 digit. Does everybody understand how to create the triangle? Are there any other questions?